Final practice for Sunday's 400-mile race against Miles the Monster. Welcome back to Dover, Delaware, as the drivers hop in and get ready to go. Last chance to get it right on a racetrack that was victim to rain last evening and had its first practice session today, just about an hour and a half ago. Temperature may approach 80 degrees by the time the day is over, and when they get ready to race on Sunday, there will have been 2 races on this track from now. The Nationwide Series race this afternoon, and in the early evening, right about supper time, the NASCAR Camping World Truck Series will have a chance to race on this track. So to get ready to race Sunday, you're preparing on a track that's not going to be quite like it's going to be tomorrow.
Oh, yeah, but we got it right, haven't we, buddy?
Yes, sir. We're ready to go.
We took all those notes and all those things I whined and complained about, and you fixed them, didn't you?
Well, and I think this racetrack is starting to come around just a little bit. You know, yesterday we were concerned because it was very cloudy, overcast. The track wasn't really taking rubber, and these teams were dependent on the NASCAR Camping World Truck Series race last night that didn't happen to put rubber down. Track was very green, but we started seeing toward the end of that practice that we had just a little bit to go, rubber going down. So now we got to get down to business because we only have 1 hour to get this thing ready for 400 miles tomorrow.
Kyle Busch was quickest in practice. David Ruderman was fast. The Roush Fenway Fords, 4 out of the 5 of them were in the top 10 in that session.
Well, we can't help but think back to what the race was like here last fall. And those Roush Fenway cars put on a whale of a show. You take Matt Kenseth, Carl Edwards, and Greg Biffle particularly, and even Jamie McMurray. I mean, he runs awfully well here too. They'll be there when the money lap gets when you get ready to run the money lap.
For more on Carl Edwards, Dr. Dick Berggren.
Now I'm going to start out with those Roush Fenway cars that Darrell was just talking about, because last fall they finished 1, 2, 3. And since then, so many people have been asking Carl Edwards, how come you haven't won a bunch of races? Well, my goodness, he won Homestead last year, so it's only been a dozen races since Carl Edwards has won. And to break the losing streak, which is a short one, this is his best place. In the last 5 races, he has finished no worse than 3rd here at Dover. In this practice session, Edwards is going to do a little bunch of science projects. They're going to try some things, Steve Burns.
Well, Dick Berger and Brian Vickers coming off a 5th place finish in the Coca-Cola 600. Now, that team, that number 83 Red Bull team, has had speed this year, but they've had problems closing the deal. He starts 9th Sunday. He was 9th in the first practice. The team told me that they were working that right rear a little bit too hard, a little bit loose in the corners. That's what they will work on this practice.
Now, here's a car that was one of the fastest on the racetrack all race long at Charlotte, but they gave up a lot of positions on pit road during that race. I think a net loss of 17 positions, whether through strategy or miscues, we don't know. That's just the raw data. But Vickers certainly was a contender.
But I like what Steve said, because that's, no matter what, that's always been the case at Dover, is keeping the car rotating and turning. Not loose, but turning. If you can do that all day long, you will wear them out here.
But racing is like a chain. You know, you got a weak link and it breaks, and okay, so you strengthen that one up, and then another one breaks, and so the first thing you got to have to win races is a fast car. So they got the hard part down, the 83 does. They got a fast car. Now they got to work on the other areas to get it to victory circle.
Here's another team in similar situation. Denny Hamlin, who right now is fastest in this practice. He's run 4 laps in his FedEx Toyota. Hamlin has been fast, but again, this year just hasn't quite been able to close the deal.
You know what? If you think you can't, you can't. If you think you can, you can. And I think that team has been bitten so many times late in the race. I think they just sit there and wait and like, well, okay,
when's
so
it going to
happen today?
Yeah, they need a good confidence booster.
They do.
Right now, that's for sure.
That's a great team. I mean, Mike Ford's a great crew chief. Denny's a good driver. They got everything it takes.
A team that needs a rebound is Jeff Gordon's. Got into the wall in qualifying, a very, very hard hit coming out of turn 2, so this is a backup car. Unfortunately, Jeff does not have a backup back to go to. And this place, as we've talked in every show, there is no flat concrete on this track. It's all banked, so it is working your body all the way around this track, every single one of 400 laps.
You know, and it always seemed like, Larry, like if I had something wrong with me physically, maybe I had some ribs that were hurting me or whatever, and say, man, the last thing I need to do is wreck again.
Yeah.
And what happens? you wreck again.
And in this place here, very rarely do we just have a one-car accident. A one-car accident turns into a multi-car accident.
The only time you have a one-car accident was like yesterday when we were qualifying.
You only have one car at a time.
One car on the track.
Jimmie Johnson is second fastest in this practice.
And there's a good reason why when we come off turn 2 back here, I mean, you truly are, it almost looks like you're driving through a tunnel. Look how narrow that is down through there. Plus, everything goes to the bottom. There's a lot of banking in the straightaways here. So when a car starts to spin, not only does he go down the racetrack and hit that inside wall, then he's probably going to bounce right back out in front of you.
But you know, Mike, we were talking about the Roush Fenway guys. The Hendrick group, they've not really shown a lot of muscle here this weekend. And let's take a look at the backstretch, and then I'll continue talking about the Hendrick group.
But you can just see how narrow. I mean, there's a room for maybe 3 cars down that back straightaway if they force it. It's really narrow, and then of course you can just see the banking. Look how it just clings right into the inside guardrail there, or inside safer barrier.
But here's one great thing, and it's down here, Darrell. It's that safer barrier all down the inside of that front straightaway as well as the outside. That's part of the capital improvement program here, and very good to see that.
You know, but speaking of that, and I'm not talking about this racetrack, I'm talking about every racetrack. Why do people think they don't need safer barriers everywhere? Boy, did you see Dale Jr.? Whoa, he's up there. Man, he about took the wall down. He missed it, but he was headed for it.
No pressure, good save.
I don't know why racetracks think they don't need safer barriers on the straightaways. I mean, it's been proven. You can wreck these cars anywhere and hit the wall hard. Jeff Gordon hit that wall yesterday off of turn 2, past the safer barrier. I just think that maybe eventually we'll have safer barrier all the way around the racetrack.
You know, watching Dale Earnhardt Jr., that was on his first lap that it stepped out. But what I was going to say, it's kind of been a really weird weekend so far for Hendrick Motorsports. They were all over the place in qualifying. Jimmie Johnson qualified 8th. Dale Earnhardt Jr. qualified 22nd. Mark Martin 28th. Jeff Gordon wrecked, and Brad Keselowski in the 5th car ended up not making the show. And when I look at the first practice earlier today, we only had one of the Hendrick cars in the top 10 as far as speeds, and that was Jimmie Johnson. That was 7th.
And last night we asked Mark, I said, is the distraction with everything going on around Junior's team having any effect on the other teams this weekend? And Mark, I thought, gave a good answer. He said, you know, it would appear that way. He said, but I don't think so.
Look at Mark Martin's car. He is 7th in this final practice for tomorrow's 400-mile race in Dover. Speed's presentation of NASCAR Sprint Cup final practice brought to you by the Harley-Davidson Super Ride. Take the ride of your life today. Mark Martin has run 7 laps. Now you'll see a little bit of rubber down right there at the entry of the corner, and yeah, the track's starting to rubber up there, Darrell.
Yeah, it's gotten a good bit warmer too, and the speeds are down just a tad in this session. 23:45 the last session in the morning session here. Now we're at 23:79, so we dropped off about 3/10.
Yeah, we actually don't have very many cars that's even running the 23s. We only have about 4 cars.
Steve?
Hey, Mike, last night on our trackside program, Mark Martin said that his car was, well, messed up. He says the first time in 2009 that they haven't unloaded fast. Here's the update on the 5 car. He's told Alan Gustafson the car is a little easier to drive. They got it better after the first practice, but they just changed a right front spring, and Mark says he wants a little softer bump stop. He also said it's taken out of the track just a little bit.
Okay, thanks, Steve.
But it definitely sounds like they're down to fine tuning now, where I think yesterday and even in the first practice they were throwing whole packages at that race.
Yeah, Mark said he said the way things have been going, he said, I forgot you could screw a car up this bad.
Kurt Truex just finished up a practice run, Dick. He is 23rd fastest.
Yeah, he's been out twice, Mike, and the first time he went out, Kurt only made a couple of laps before he got on the radio and told the crew that the car was just incredibly tight and he wanted a spring change. They came in, made the spring change. He has picked up a 10th, and unlike many drivers who describe the behavior of the car and then let the crew chief decide what adjustments to make, Kurt is himself from behind the wheel calling for the adjustments he wants to get the tight out of his car.
Well, who used to drive that car and who used to call the shots from the seat? Rusty Wallace, much the same way.
I'm just looking to see exactly how many laps that Kurt has run in this practice session.
He's run 6 laps.
6 laps.
Larry, 2 runs.
Yep.
It just always rings in my ear when I hear it, particularly in this day and time, when a driver tells him what he wants and how he wants it done and everything. Then the race starts and the car's not very good, and the first thing I used to hear is, well, you got what you wanted, big boy, now live with it.
Tony Stewart, 13th in this session. He's run 14 laps. Down to the garage, and Steve.
Mike, big changes on the 88 for Dale Earnhardt Jr. He said his car is unpredictable getting into the corner. He said it's out of control loose in the corner and really tight coming off. They're going to change the front sway bar. They're also going to change both front springs.
Steve, if I could fix one thing for him, just one thing, it would be getting in the corner. Every time he has a problem with his race car, it's always, we hear a lot of different explanations, falling over on the right front. The right front's doing something it's not supposed to. If they would just get the right front fixed on his car, I think he'd be okay. But watch, here he goes into turn 3. He's driving down in the corner, and just watch his car now. I mean, it's not him, it's the car, and this thing just dives in there, gets loose, up the hill it goes.
But if I recall from the first session, in the first session, he was loose coming off, and now he's tight coming off the corner.
Yeah, and they've got him, they've taken spring out of the right front, I guess, trying to help that up off the corner, and it's got it unpredictable getting in.
And I don't think our slow motion version does it justice.
Oh,
Remember,
no.
that's happening over 170 miles per hour.
You got that right.
Denny Hamlin and Jimmy Johnson still quickest in this practice. On the next all-new episode of Wrecked, a container truck tips over on a Chicago highway and the recovery gets complicated. An all-new Wrecked. Life in the Crash Lane, Thursday, 10 p.m. Eastern on Speed. Yesterday, the annual Autism Society of Delaware golf tournament put on by our own irrepressible director, Artie Kempner. And I haven't seen an official score sheet, but the word that's come down from Wilmington is that our producer, Barry Landis, anchored the winning team. And I understand they are checking the length of the eraser on Barry's scoring pencil to make sure that it is within spec.
It's under protest, I hear. Yeah, having a review, they're looking at the tape.
His clubs went through the templates. There was a little bit of toe out on his putter, but not more than 1 degree.
I think when they froze the field, he passed a lot of cars.
And he's telling me that he did not back into that win, though.
Oh, yeah.
Steve.
Hey, Mike, our pole sitter David Rudiman, his update on that 00. He says that the entry is pretty good, but if I could roll better in the corner, I could get off the turns better. Also, this team looking at the 48 car as the team to beat. I've heard several teams talking about the 48 being quickest.
Well, he's second quickest right now, Steve. Jimmy Johnson, he's run a total of 15 laps, and we talked about him earlier. He was the only Hendrick car in the top 10 as far as that first practice session.
Bobby Labonte in the Ask.com Ford, carrying the Autism Speaks logo on its quarter panels this weekend. And right behind him, Mike Skinner. Skinner peels off in that black car. That's Tommy Baldwin Racing's entry. And he replaces Scott Riggs. Riggs and Baldwin parted company last weekend after the Coke 600 by mutual agreement.
And I've been watching that 36 car, and I mean, he obviously, you know, he's not
cut a fast lap.
Not a really fast lap, but he's very consistent, and the car looks like it's working really good. I saw him in there amongst some of the faster cars, and he was able to hold his own pretty good. So Skinner doing a nice job in that 36 this weekend.
They have some sponsorship from Shea Trucking on Long Island. Saw Mr. Shea and his wife in the hotel yesterday, and they're longtime friends and backers of the Baldwins, but not a major sponsor on the flanks or the hood, so might be a short day for Tommy Baldwin Racing tomorrow.
Yeah, Mike's going to run this car quite a bit this year. It'll mainly be on weekends like here, where it's a companion event with the NASCAR Camping World Truck Series. Of course, Mike right in the thick of that championship battle. So when I was talking to Mike yesterday, and Darrell will relate to this, I said, Mike, so if you guys are off Daytona weekend for the 4th of July race, that mean you'll race it there? He said, oh no. Myself and Jim Hunter with NASCAR and our wives are going over to Goodwood, a place that you've attended a big event over there, Darrell.
I love that event. It's drivers from all over the world. And the thing I love about European drivers and Formula One and even the guys that run the 24 Hours of Le Mans and all that, they're gods over there. Yes. They're sirs and they're knighted, and I mean those guys, people over there bow down to them. It's amazing how the drivers, the respect they get in Europe.
And you can't just bring your car and show up. It's an invitation event only for past champions and winners of major races.
Yep.
Wonder if Casey Mears' Uncle Rick might be going.
He probably will, because Penske usually has some cars over there, and most every car there is a significant car. It's not just some car that somebody drug in off the street.
Right.
All of them have won. Whoa, like that 07 car.
Good lap.
But the cars are, winning Formula One cars, championship cars, Indy cars, stock cars. There's just so many different kinds of race cars there. It's a great week.
Great event.
Tell you what, Casey's actually having a pretty good day today. He's 5th quickest in his practice session. You mentioned earlier, Mike, he definitely was the top qualifying Childers car. Yesterday's qualifying session qualified 17th, and we keep saying it. I think what Casey Mears needs is just a cup of 3 good, consistent, solid runs. Don't need to necessarily win races right now, just some good, solid, consistent runs for him.
Jeff Burton right now 29th on the sheet in his Cat Chevrolet.
He's had his hands full a couple of times with this car. I've seen him up the racetrack. I guess they're just trying to hit on something or trying to find something that he likes, but so far I don't know that they've done that.
So they're running right about where they qualified. Burton will start, I think, 32nd. No, 32nd tomorrow. Let's go to the top of the chart. Dick Berggren.
And the top of the chart right now is Denny Hamlin, and no surprise, he's got a very good race car. He has told the crew that the car is very good everywhere except late exit, where it snaps loose. Can't imagine how scary that's got to be, a snap loose at this place.
And this has been a good racetrack, almost a lot like Casey Kane. He's had great runs here. He just does not have the finishes to show for it. Last year, he had a problem on pit road. The 2 races in 2008, finished 38th and 43rd here, but probably had a top 5 to top 10 car both races.
I just got to tell you, watch this car right here, Larry. I've been watching him lap after lap. He's incredibly fast, running the bottom. Car looks pretty good. Moves around a little bit with him, but I think he likes it that way. It's probably a little free. But, man, he can really get through 3 and 4. Even though the car dances a little bit, it's really got a good look coming up off the corner straight right there.
And I'm going to guess that having to run 2 races today, a couple hundred laps each, and then go 400 tomorrow isn't going to phase him one little bit.
It sure doesn't seem to. I mean, I think the thing that phases a driver is when you're in the summertime and do that. When it's hot and you get a little dehydrated from one event to the next, that's when I think it affects you the most. Right now, these cool days, rather manageable, but when it starts to get hot outside and you start sweating and losing lots of fluids and get dehydrated a little bit, cramp a little bit, that's when it affects you.
Casey Kane is 12th fastest in this session. He is the quickest Dodge. It's been a big day already for rookie Joey Logano. He will start this afternoon's Nationwide Series race from the pole.
And he's going to start tomorrow's race about mid-pack, qualified 21st. Right now, he's 15th quickest in this practice session. And, of course, this is an anniversary for Joey Logano. He just turned 19 last week, which means a year ago he just had turned 18. He made his big-time NASCAR debut here in the Nationwide Series race 1 year ago, shortly after turning 18.
Watch his, they ought to call these things, they had Smoke driving it, but they ought to call it Smoky. Because when he backs off the gas there, like we've seen a lot of places, short tracks more than here maybe, got that little trail of black smoke that comes out the right side out of the tailpipes.
We've seen that a lot out of these Joe Gibbs cars.
Jeff Gordon will start in the back. He will start 42nd. And the question may be, why not 43rd since he crashed during qualifying? Why wouldn't he start last? We'll answer that after we hear from Dick Bergman.
And Jeff Gordon has been in the garage more than he has been on the racetrack, Mike. He's only logged 16 laps on the Speedway so far, and each time he has returned to the garage, there have been multiple changes made to the car. They are being ultra secretive here. Gordon isn't saying anything at all on the racetrack about the behavior of the car, and as soon as they get in the garage, they switch to the team's private channel, so we can't hear anything they're saying to each other. But I can promise you there's almost nothing on that car that they haven't changed in this practice.
Well, NASCAR has, they have digital radios now, and you can't scan those. And so the teams can use those in practice. They just can't use the digital radios in the race. But that's to keep other teams and nosy TV reporters from finding out exactly what it is they're doing down there. But remember what they said about this car. They don't know anything about it. It's been their designated backup car. They don't even know how long it's been on the truck. So they probably got a little work to do on the old girl.
But Jeff will start 42nd because although we have a 43-car field, qualifying is conducted to fill 42 positions on the grid. And included in those 42 positions are the 35 teams that are locked into the field. Since Jeff spun out and he is one of those top 35 teams by car owner points, he gets the last position, which is 42nd. Then, and only then, does the 43rd position open up for either a past champion who's not yet in the field or the next fastest qualified car. Well, there's a lot to look at tomorrow on race day right here on Speed. You'll get the latest on Dale Jr. and his new crew chiefs. News from NASCAR's town hall meetings. David Rudiman on his first Sprint Cup win. Much more. It all starts at 11:30 Eastern on Speed. NASCAR race day built by the Home Depot. Sam Hornish is 17th in this session. He has run 16 laps, and he is the second fastest Dodge on track and the fastest of the Roger Penske cars.
You know, going to break not long ago, we showed Casey Kane. Remember, he's going to start in the outside of the front row. He was second quickest in the first practice. Here's what I get a feeling that was going on with that 9 car. They made one run at the start of this practice for 8 laps, and it's almost like what Kenny Francis and that group did is they're trying a full-blown something different. Maybe a 4 springs, 4 shocks sway bar, just to see. They can always go back to what they had because obviously that was pretty good, but this is maybe a little bit of a test session they're doing right here.
Maybe, but the other thing that the concern they've had, I don't know why, about switching over to this new engine was reliability. And so they might be just a little bit cautious with this engine the first time out, trying to keep the miles down on it and not stretch that out too much.
That's a good point.
And you know, Mike, 2 things about this engine, and we sat down with one of the owners last week, and he kind of brought us up to speed. This engine is lighter, about 20 to 25 pounds than the old Dodge engine, which obviously anytime you can take weight off those front tires, the front tires love it, especially at a place like this where you're in the corner so much. It's not that this new engine makes a ton more horsepower, but it has more what we call grunt, bottom end. And right there, when he picks that throttle up and you drive up the hill, that's where that bottom end really will kick in and help you lunge onto that straightaway.
You see, a lot of that has become more critical because of the gear rule. You know, back when you could just run any gear you wanted to, if you made 9,000, if you could make 850 horsepower at 9,000 RPM, everybody was happy because you just gear it to where it would do that. But when it came with the gear rule, had to reconfigure the engines a little bit. Could be, you know, it's hurt the Dodge more than maybe it has some of the other teams.
Yeah, NASCAR gives the teams everywhere we go an option of 2 different gears, but I can guarantee you all 43 cars in that garage area, they have the lowest of the choices, which here at Dover is a 444.
Dale Jr. back out. Both Brian Weitzel and Lance McGrew in his garage. McGrew was here to crew chief Brad Keselowski, but that car did not make the show, and Lance takes over as interim crew chief for Junior officially next week at Pocono.
You know
how's he doing there, Darrell?
So it's pretty relaxed right there. He's finally looks like he's got a little grip in the front tires. You see, got a good bit of pretty nice tug on the wheel. That's not unusual coming up off the corner. See you jacking a little bit like that. He's not holding it up in the track as much as he was earlier today. Looks pretty smooth. I'm not so sure. Might not be a car that's on pretty fresh tires though. But right now that's the best he's looked in the car as far as what we can see.
Yeah, he's only run 8 laps so far in this practice session. I think this is only his 2nd time out.
Steve, his former teammate Martin Truex was fast off the truck in the opening practice, but otherwise hasn't shown us any speed until this last run that he made, and he's 4th on the board now.
Pretty good, Mike. Martin Truex Jr. just saying that his car is a little bit tight. Crew chief Kevin Mannion says they've adjusted the rear spring split, and they're also going to change the left front spring. And Mike, when they go back out, you guys talked a lot yesterday about how they've changed pit road. Martin Truex Jr. is going to practice getting into the pits after this next run.
And just remember, what makes a driver and a crew and everybody sleep better the night before a race? Be in pretty good shape on this scoring monitor. Right. So the smart crew chief, he's going to put a nice fresh set of tires on that bad boy just before practice gets over with, so he can get him a nice lap up there so the driver can go home and sleep a little better tonight.
And a little bit is a lot on that scoring monitor right now, because we've got like Casey Mears, who's 5th quickest at a 24:02. Dale Earnhardt Jr. is 37th at a 24:40, his fastest lap.
Plus, another thing you want to do is, just before practice ends, I want to fill my car full of fuel and put the tires, or a simulated set of tires on, like I'm going to start the race. And I want to know when that green flag comes out, not bail off in the first turn side by side with somebody, what I got. And that's the only way you can do that.
And you know what I'll tell you? Just hang on. It'll come to you.
It'll come to you.
Well, the thing I like about Martin Truex is if he has time to practice pit road entry, the rest of that car must be pretty good. Denny Hamlin leads this practice, but Darrell, something in turn 4 just took your breath away.
Man, I looked up there, and of course, you know, some of these guys are talking about trying to make a little practice run here, trying to get on pit road. A.J. Allmendinger just, I mean, scared me. I don't know if it scared him or not, but it scared me. Made a really late dive down on pit road. Looked like he was headed for the end of the pit wall down there, but he made it.
Well, under green here always has been a challenge for a guy to make a green flag pit stop, because you're in the banking, and then you cut down off the banking, and then you've got to be down to 35 miles per hour. So I think it's just a different look down there now with pit road, the inside wall going on around into the middle of 3 and 4.
I think on tracks like this, we would be better served. It'd be much safer to enter the pit lane on the over in the 3rd turn. I mean, you have to run all the way around the 1st and 2nd turn to get onto the racetrack. Seems like you ought to have to come into the pits off the 3rd turn, and you're not up in harm's way.
Now, Mark Martin was already down off the banking, as you saw make the entry onto the new pit road. Each pit stall is several feet longer than before. The pit road is 2 or more feet wider than before, and there are now a full 43 of those longer pit stalls. No one will have to share a pit as previously.
No, they've made a ton of improvements. I don't even know. We're going to still be probably talking about the entrance to pit road, but I don't know if we're going to be talking a lot about pit road anymore like we have in the past.
Yep, hats off to Dennis McGlynn and all the folks at Dover Motorsports. They just continue to make this a better facility for both the teams and especially for the fans. What they've done with the hotel expansion there, attached to the casino over on the backstretch of the Speedway. They just continue to make this a better facility. Now here we'll see the 44 that Darrell was talking about and his entry toward pit road. Look on the right side of your screen.
He's going pretty hot right here, and I mean, that thing got sideways and he just wheeled her into the pit lane. That got my attention.
And if you remember, it wasn't that many years ago, and it was actually in the fall race in the chase. Matt Kenseth got sideways like that, and he actually hit the actual end of pit wall itself.
Boy, howdy, did he ever. In fact, he said those water-filled barrels, he hit them so hard that Chad Knaus, who was overseeing the very first pit, way across pit road, got soaked. Yeah. He was smiling when he said it, too. Dick?
Well, Chad Knaus is smiling right now as well. His car, driven by Jimmy Johnson, is second on the chart. Johnson tomorrow will start in the 8th position with a car that is nearly perfect. They have been working on a very little tight situation in the middle of the corner. And other than that, this 3-time Dover winner has got a good hot rod for the race.
And you know what? That's that same car that they were forced to unload at Darlington about 3 weeks ago with no practice, and ended up finishing second with it in the Darlington race.
You know, Denny Hamlin has the fastest lap as we ride with him here, but Barry just pointed out he has run by far the most laps in this session. This will be his 56th lap coming around here, trying to dial that Toyota in for tomorrow's race.
And he ran a ton of laps actually in the first practice session. Mike, he ran 46 laps, so he's ran over 100 laps just in these 2 practice sessions today.
Well, just 400-mile race. These engines can go easily 700 miles before any probably fatigue or really concern. So you have a little cushion here versus some of the other places we go.
And the straightaways are fairly short here. They're 1,076 feet, and you don't have that hanging RPM. It's the RPM just goes up there and spikes and comes back down.
But I will say this: if you fly an airplane or there's a lot to be said for cycles too. And when you're sitting out here running for 4 hours, the engine goes through a lot of cycles, maybe as many as it does at maybe the 600. I don't know. I've never studied it, but I do know they do consider cycles on the engines.
Here's Robbie Gordon, 35th on the board, who made what turned out to be a great strategy call. At the close of the Coke 600, he was one of the 3 lead lap drivers who chose not to pit when what turned out to be the final caution for rain came out, and got himself a 3rd place finish.
Absolutely, in my book, for him and a lot of others that didn't take advantage of it, it was a no-brainer. He was the next to the last car on the lead lap. We had 25 cars on the lead lap. Kurt Almquist, like he told me, he said, Larry, it was not a gamble whatsoever. He said, if we restart, I come in and pit under caution, and I'm right back where I started this thing.
Well, that's the luxury about being way back. You kind of got the option of doing either one, but I just saw another guy have a little issue getting on pit road, which doesn't come as a great surprise. Joey hadn't actually made that many pit stops here anyway, but Joey just missed the end of pit road and had to make a go around.
He may have never made a green flag stop here. Don't know that he had to do one in the nationwide races last year.
Mother Nature's been winning a lot. Yesterday she won, and the NASCAR Camping World Truck Series got postponed to today. So live on Speed this afternoon, you will see Chris Devoda and the setup live at 5:30 Eastern, immediately followed by the AAA Insurance 200 Camping World Truck Series, only on Speed, and it's coming at you later this afternoon.
As we get near the end of this practice, more and more people are starting to test the pit road entrance down here. I just saw another car. Here's David Rudeman. Really come on hot, got it locked up, smoked the tires. I think the guys are really starting to try to figure out what am I going to do here, because it is totally different. Now, the problem with that, Larry, as you well know, what if I was going to change 2 tires?
Then you better not slide those left side tires. But this race, we always have our fair share of cautions.
Right.
But it seems like we always get into that little bit of a lull where we get a green flag run, and these guys are forced to make a green flag pit stop.
And it's almost like a science. In all the racetracks we go to, these guys know pretty much what the limits are. When you got a new situation like this, you got no idea, so you got to you need to work on it just a little bit.
Well, here's a telling statistic as far as who might have a good shot to win this race tomorrow. Of the top 20 drivers, only 2 of them have run their fastest lap in anything but the first 2 laps of practice. Jimmy Johnson is second. He just ran his fastest lap of the session. He was second fastest and is still second. And Kurt Busch just put up his fastest lap of the day. He is 18th quickest, 1 spot above Carl Edwards and David Rudiman.
I think I can blame that on a couple of things. One, I think it's pretty obvious they put on 4 fresh tires, but also it's starting to get a little cloudy, a little overcast, and the track has cooled down, so it's probably gained a lot of grip. So with fresh tires, that's the reason they were able to go out there and do that. We may see more of these guys put the fresh tires on and do it here in these last 15 or 20 minutes.
I still think it's one to sleep on myself.
Start off tight. I get a little loose as we run.
Kurt's run a total of 46 laps. He's been out 6 different times in this practice session.
I think back, it's been a long time, but I think back when I was driving, one of the hardest things for me to be able to deal with was how my car drove at the beginning of a run, because it never drove good. It never felt comfortable. I always had, as Larry would say, they'd always be screaming, just calm down, it'll come to you. But the cars are so squirrely in those first 7 or 8 or 10 laps of a run that you think you're going to wreck it. Wow. But then, in all honesty, most of the time they were right. If you waited 10 laps, so it would come to you. But man, it was nerve-wracking.
Mark Martin, he's 7th in this practice session. He's run a total of 38 laps in the 5 car.
And Dale Jr. is 37th. That was his first lap, was his quickest. This will be his 15th lap of this final practice hour.
He's not running a lot of laps each time out, and I noticed that about his teammate Jeff Gordon, which tells me they're searching. They still don't have what they're looking for. So if it's not good in the first 5 or 6 laps, there's no sense in just wasting time. Just keep running.
You see the car wiggle getting in the corner. I mean, they just can't get that out of this car. I don't know what it is about this car, but he never can drive it in the corner without it moving around with him, and it's just it's not comfortable. And the only thing you do then is back off.
Now note the outside wall here, starting right there. See that blue stripe at the bottom of the wall? You'll see that at the entry and the exit of each corner, because on a bright sunny day, it's very hard for the drivers to tell the white wall from the white concrete. So that's why that line is there as a guide.
Well, let's listen to the engine of this car. Now listen to him. He's out of the throttle, out of the throttle, out of the throttle. Soft, soft, soft. Gets it wide open there. Listen to the tires. I mean, it's breaking loose up as it comes up off the corner over there.
This racetrack is definitely taking some rubber now. I really feel good about that, especially with the fact we have 2 more races before our race tomorrow.
Do you see any dust?
Nope.
No,
I
not
see
any
rubber
dust,
in the racetrack.
like we saw yesterday.
Yeah, very different racetrack from yesterday. Steve?
Mike, Juan Pablo Montoya starts 3rd tomorrow. He just told crew chief Brian Patty that car's a little bit tight when he has to get on the brakes, but the good news is really good when he gets on that gas pedal.
And there's no question, we even saw him do it qualifying. He was about halfway up the racetrack, especially in 3 and 4. Juan Pablo Montoya, more than likely, Michael Waltrip, some of the same cast of characters. They will be hunting the higher groove at this racetrack tomorrow.
Yeah, I've seen a number of guys. It's funny how racetracks are. Like, a lot of guys are running real low in 1 and 2, like you normally would. But then when they get to 3 and 4, they want to arc it in and run the high line in 3 and 4. Track's virtually the same on both ends, but just more grip up high on one end and more on the bottom on the other.
Scott Speed is 32nd in this session. All but 1 car in the field have been on the racetrack, and that one would be Dave Blaney. Speed has put down 31 laps.
Scott's going to be doing one of the guys doing the double duty. He'll be running the Nationwide Series race and had a pretty solid weekend last weekend. He qualified and finished 18th at Lowe's Motor Speedway after missing the race at Darlington.
Well, he won the truck race here last year.
He did.
Yeah.
And that was a big surprise, I think, to everybody in NASCAR.
Yeah, he just drove off and left them in the dust last year here in the truck race.
Not the tire dust.
No, this was the smoky kind. Like I smoked you off. Ryan
Newman, Sam Hornish. Ryan is 14th. Sam is 17th. in this practice. Sam is the second quickest Dodge.
Sam's put down some laps. Been out there quite a bit.
You know, while we're watching these two, you were talking about Denny Hamlin, Mike. He now has run 71 laps in this practice session.
Wow.
Denny, we race tomorrow, not today.
Hamlin is hungry for a win. No doubt about that. Watch the best of NASCAR on Speed shows online on demand. Go to speedtv.com or NASCAR.com each weekend for interviews, highlights, race recaps from your favorite speed programs like Trackside, Race Day, Victory Lane, and more. Log on to speedtv.com today.
You know, we were talking about the track walk yesterday.
Yes.
And it was supposed to be at 6 o'clock tonight. This is the second year in a row that the truck race has delayed the track walk. I think they're still having it tonight.
Will it be by candlelight?
But it's going to be after the truck race. I believe I'm correct about that.
Okay.
Carl Edwards has run a total of 32 laps. Right now he's 19th quickest in this 99 car.
Here's Dick Berggren.
And Kyle Busch has just brought his race car to the attention of his crew. He has been on a long run, Mike, and said that toward the end of that long run, the car started to pick up a little push. Crew chief Steve Addington said, bring it in. He's going to try something to see if he can fix it. And this race that you'll see tomorrow on Fox has a history of long runs, stretches of well over 100 laps. So smart strategy.
Well, the thing you have to try to overcome it when you make a long run. A fuel run here is somewhere between 80 to 85 laps. And of course, when you get near that part of a run, you've burned all the fuel load off, and a lot of the weight has transferred to the nose of the car, and that really makes the car not want to turn. It wants to push. So you've got to try to do things to overcome that.
One of the big problems you have here is air pressure buildup. Because of the concrete and the bumps in the track, you'll build up more air pressure here in your right front tire than probably any place else we go. And so you're trying to figure out how to control that, because that can be a huge disadvantage.
Steve?
Hey, Mike, just want to follow up on Mark Martin. They're making a lot of progress. Mark just said, I just need a little more drive off the corner. Alan Gustafson has that 5 car in the garage. They're going to put a spring rubber in the left rear spring.
This racetrack has just been a phenomenal racetrack for Mark Martin. He has over 40 starts here. He has 4 wins, 21 top 5 finishes, and 28 top 10s at this racetrack.
I think what that tells you about Mark Martin, and you can say, I don't care where we go, he probably will have more top 5s and top 10s than anybody. But I can't tell you how many races I can think of that he has run second in. Yeah. I mean, there's some racetracks we go to, he'd be second like 5, 6, 7 times. Pocono, I think,
I think where we're going next week. Yeah.
But that's just the kind of driver Mark is. He sets back and finished second in the points a couple of times, you know, so he's just one of those kind of guys, takes care of his stuff, gets to the finish, doesn't push it too hard, takes a second.
And he still, Mike, we had him on trackside, refuses to talk about the chase, the championship. He said, we're just going to keep trying to win some races.
Larry, but you got to realize something about Mark. Mark's kind of, the older you get, the more tender-hearted you get. And the older you get, the more you look back on things that happened to you, the more they hurt. And Mark's had his heart broken a couple of times in racing, just by losing the championship or other things.
Finished second 4 times in the points battle.
And so Mark doesn't want to set himself up for a big disappointment. I think he's done that in the past. I think he's just trying to be cautious.
Good point. Casey Mears, 5th quickest. We had a look at there.
And I tell you, our pole sitter had his hands full when Casey Mears was getting by him, David Rudeman, in that 00 car. Now, Casey may be on much fresher tires, and that's something you have to watch in this practice session. Don't get led down the wrong road because you're out there trying to keep up and run with somebody. You've got 30 or 40 laps on your tires, and he busts out there with new tires.
Closing minutes of final practice, and Denny Hamlin still tops the chart. Well, it's been a strong practice session for Joe Gibbs Racing. 2 cars in the top 3. Hendrick Motorsports, 2 cars in the top 10. Roush Fenway, 3 cars in the top 10. And Richard Childress Racing, 2 in the top 10. Now there's best 10 consecutive laps as we have them. And for us, this is a much better way to evaluate practice than the fastest individual laps, but add Kurt Busch to some of the usual suspects.
You know, when I look at our scoring monitor, I look at some of these charts here. 2009, we've had 12 races and 8 different winners. You look at Dover alone, I think the last 7 races we've had 7 different winners. I think we're going to go 13 races and 9 different winners when the checkered flag waves tomorrow here at Dover.
I think it's amazing that we've had 2 first-time winners, you know, with David Ruderman and then Brad Keselowski. I mean, you think about the powerhouse teams in this sport and how they've dominated so much over the last several years. But here's 2 guys that just came out of nowhere this year that have won races unexpectedly, you have to admit.
Dale Earnhardt Jr.
Yeah, he's picked
it up a little bit. I get a feeling, yeah, they possibly made this car better, but they probably threw some fresh tires on it as well.
Well, he ran 24.62, and that's 27 laps. Over here, Denny Hamlin, I don't know what lap he ran his time on, but that was a 24.73. So
now those were both of their last laps.
Last laps, yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Their best lap, Hamlin 23.79.
Oh yeah,
Earnhardt 24.20.
Yeah, not a good comparison.
No,
best lap. I'm just talking about they've been
recently.
Working. Yeah, recently.
They're very close. You're right. Most of the cars lapping right now are in the 24.5 to 24.8.
Exactly, and that's right where the 88 car is.
Well, the flags are out, but I know what I saw a lot of guys doing here in the closing laps of this practice. We talked about it a while ago. They were working that high groove in, especially down in turn 3 and 4.
Well, yeah, she'll be there. Time they get through racing this afternoon.
Casey Kane will start outside pole tomorrow.
We just had a moment coming on the pit road and the flags were out.
I thought Jeff Gordon was going to wreck again.
Oh no!
I thought 2 Gordons were going to wreck at once. One named Robbie, one named Jeff.
So here's the fastest individual laps of practice. David Reagan up in the top 10.
All those Roush Fenway guys back there.
This is one of those, hey, watch this moments.
Okay, watch this.
I mean, the flags are out. You know, everybody's stopping to look. Here's the 24, and here comes Robbie. That's 2 Gordons crashing together at one time. Woo! Made it, though.
That's when you would know you have had a bad day, as if you wreck coming on the pit road and practice is over.
It'd be like your spare tire blowing out.
No problem. So tomorrow, our final NASCAR on Fox race of 2009. It's the Autism Speaks 400 presented by Heluva Good.
We got some really, I tell you, I think it's going to be a really good race, guys.
I do too.
Just so many cars are running so close together. It's going to be a good one, I believe.
So join us tomorrow for NASCAR on Fox. A lot more NASCAR coverage coming up later today on Speed with the Camping World Truck Series.